Yeah. Go? All right, let's go. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming today. I'm happy to be able to be here and talk to you. Mostly, I want to give you the chance to ask any questions that you have, but hopefully I can preempt a few of them. Sorry about the pillars. This is why I put the chairs out, so I don't walk past them so everybody can see me, but I can still see you all. Able to with regard to the future, it's obviously been a long road, but then also just give an opportunity for you to ask questions. So if you're online, feel free anywhere along the line to raise your hand or type in the comment section. And for those of you who are here, if you just raise your hand if you have a question, I'd be happy to answer those as we go. First of all, thank you for all of your work. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I know the people of this county appreciate it. And hopefully that comes across when I see you, and although that hasn't been very much lately, but with birthday cards and other things like that, we certainly are appreciative of your work, especially over the last 18 months and more as we've gone down the path of this long discussion about the future of our campus. The discussion has been long for a couple of reasons. One, we really are focused on getting it right. The county has been in this business for a really long time, and the future is quite uncertain, not just for us, but the whole industry at large. And so we're trying to evaluate all the pieces from really a national and even a global perspective, all the way down to the local and the very, very personal. So it's taking a long time because we want to make sure that we're being fair and looking at the whole picture. Okay, we want to make sure that we're being fair to residents. We want to be sure that we're being fair to employees. We want to be sure that we're being fair to taxpayers and citizens. And really also on much bigger macro scale, we're being fair to the county organization as a whole, because we don't know what it's going to look like in 10 years. And really, quite honestly, nobody does. When we started the conversation probably 5 years ago, publicly, there's three key things that we've been looking at. And I can say that with confidence because this conversation really has been going on since pretty much the day I got here. When Matt Furno was the administrator, he made a habit of bringing me into his office and really starting to lay the groundwork for what this conversation would look like as we're approaching it here in the next couple of months. But there's three key pieces that have brought us to the point we're at. And they drive every piece of the conversation and all of those moving parts that I just talked about a moment ago. One is the future of Medicaid funding and the inadequacy of Medicaid funding as a whole. Basically, the federal government, from my vantage point, has been derelict in its duties and how it funds and cares for lives of people in Medicaid programs. We're talking 50 cents on the dollar, give or take, depending on the year. This is a federal issue. This is a state issue. I will give credit where it's due. The state of Wisconsin increased that funding for next year by 12% and the following year by 12%. But that's about 20 years in the making. We're talking like sometimes no increase, 1 or 2% increases year over year. Meanwhile, the costs are going up exponentially. So Medicaid funding has been a problem. To make matters worse, we're looking at trying to solve this thing, not just for the next 5 or 10 years, but really for the next 30 to 50 years. It's now Medicaid is really the federal government is quite unreliable. So that's one issue. The second issue is you all working it every single day, and so you probably know it better than we anticipate. Even if we were just to try to put money into the building to keep it operating, we would need somewhere between $10 and $15 million to get it functional for the next 20 years. That's not a realistic investment on a building that's really a concrete building that was built back in 1964. We're past that. The only way we would ever consider even doing that is for a short-term solution that's 5 or 10 years long, which is really what we don't want to do. We want to solve this once and have it solved for a long period of time. So Medicaid's a problem, the building's a problem. And the third thing, and this is probably the most complicated because you're all sitting in front of me, but the third thing is staffing and the cost of staffing and the challenge of staffing. And nobody seeming to want to be in this industry anymore, which in the middle of COVID has only got exponentially worse. And if you look at the demographics, not just in your industry, but in all industries, there just aren't human beings to do these jobs over time. And so looking at what does that look like not just in the next 5 years, but really in the next 6 months and the next 12 months, we're watching people leave the healthcare industry and completely appreciate why looking at the campus and your organization 30 years. That we serve is only 20 to 30 years. Drop off, it's going to stay static for a period of time long into the future. 20 problem is together with that funding complexity that and the federal government isn't solving that problem, and we're trying to solve for those three issues here locally, knowing that sits out there in the much bigger picture. Okay, so that's the picture that we've been talking about and looking at, as I said, really for the last 8 years, but in the public session in the last three to 5 years. What does that mean for you today? Well, know one thing, and I know this must be the most difficult 18 to 24 months for most of your careers. If you've been here for a really long time, I'm sure it's been extremely frustrating to watch this conversation play out. If you know me at all, and I know some of you know me better than others, some of you probably don't know me at all, but I'm very candid. If you ask me a question today, I'm going to be very direct, probably to a fault. But my philosophy, my theory is that in being that candid, you need to know what's happening and why it's happening, okay? And I don't want you to be surprised as we go through this process. Hopefully you haven't been surprised to this point. But the goal all along is, and has been, that we try to turn over every rock and investigate every possible solution for us to be able to serve the population. Because first and foremost, our focus, it needs to be on the people that we're serving. Not the elected county board supervisors, not even staff, first and foremost. It's the people whose lives we're having an impact on every single day. Okay, that's where we're looking first. Not just today, not the ones just who live here today, but really for the years to come as well. So that's all a long way of saying this is a really complicated issue. We're trying to look at every possible solution to make sure that whatever we decide today doesn't in 3 years get changed or we go through this discussion again. Instead, once the decision's made, whatever that decision is, it has long-lasting impacts and people are served in the way that we're supposed to be here to serve them, okay? So bear with us, and I know it's been a long journey, and I know it's asking a lot, especially in the middle of an awful 1.5 years with COVID, but bear with us to get that decision right the first time, okay? With that said, let me talk just a little bit about what I see happening in the next 3 to 6 months, because we're down to the point where we can't drag this out anymore from my vantage point. And I don't mean to say that we've been dragging it out to begin with. I think we've really been trying to exhaust every possible option, but we have got to get a solution in place. We can't have this building deteriorate any further. We can't have you all not knowing what's happening any longer. We can't have residents unsure of what their future is any further. And I have been pushing internally to get us closer and closer to that decision point, whatever that decision point might be. You've probably heard me publicly say many, many, many times that the people of Washington County have to be empowered to make this decision on their own, because it's that big of a decision. Okay. I have felt strongly from the beginning that has to be the case. That's why we put the task force together when we did almost 18 months ago now. It's why we've flirted back and forth with going to a referendum, which has kind of been the fallback position really since the beginning of this discussion. And it's why I felt it's important to get in front of you now. And when Taya and Julie and Matt said, would you be willing to do it? I immediately said, of course I'd be willing to do it. The next 6 months, I would expect you to see a couple of things. Really, in the next month, if you didn't already hear last month, you'll get another much more thorough update next month. We're down to basically 2 options that we're going to present the committee with and ultimately the board with for the future. One is that we look at building a new campus. First of all, there's no scenario where the building that we're sitting in today is the long-term solution. There's no scenario where that exists. But one is we build a new campus. The county board by themselves has the ability to approve that, okay? And the county and our funding streams that are here today can actually fund that. If they make that decision on their own, somewhere in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to kick the can down the road to where they either need to go to referendum to keep the operation going, or they need to build something new, like additional CBRF, additional RCAC, a new independent living facility, something else that can subsidize what is a financial loser, and that's skilled nursing. It's not that it's bad, it's a bad industry or bad people or bad work. It's that financially it doesn't make any sense at all, which is why the private sector is getting out of the business, and quite honestly, why the nonprofit sector has gotten out of the business in some cases. All right, so that's one option. I think it's a very viable option. I think it's very, very possible that the county board decides to go down that path. And the reason I think that is twofold. One, I think the majority want to stay in the business. And number two, I think it's very, very possible that we could get one-time federal grant money of some variety through the American Recovery Plan Act to help fund the building, or at least a portion of the building. Okay, so that's one very real possibility. That decision could come as soon before the end of the year, just to be a little bit generous. I think it could happen sooner. It could take a little longer depending on that grant money, but that's one very real option. The other option is that they feel completely uncomfortable making that decision, kicking it out for 5 or 10 years, and they decide they're going to referendum in April. What does that referendum really mean? Well, the way that I framed the referendum, I don't think it makes any sense to go to the public and ask them what they think without that referendum being a binding. People in the county, should we realize this and we're not going to do it. We're to give us the operation going for 30 to 50 years, and we're never coming back to you. And we're clearly in this business. So energy, the effort, the politics, and there will be politics of going through that discussion. Okay. So I think it's very, very possible that the board just makes the decision on their own. The other thing with the referendum that's important to know is if the answer is no, if the community on referendum, which would, by the way, be in April of 2022, if the community says no, I actually think it gets even more complicated, not easier. So there's a lot of risk in going down that path, which is another reason I think it's very, very possible the board just decides, you know what, we're just gonna solve this for now and we're gonna push that off. Okay. All of that being said, the next 3 to 6 months, I know is gonna continue to be a difficult time. And so I've been talking with Julie and Matt and Taya about how do we get ourselves through that time? And I know we're losing staff left and right. I know the whole healthcare industry is losing staff. And then to add one more brick to the wall, we're going through this extremely difficult decision on top of COVID and everything else that's happening. And so we're working right now on a package to retain people through this whole discussion and decision-making process. Okay. And there's two different kind of pipelines of thought that are going to happen with regard to what that retention looks like. From other pieces that will roll out in the next few months that are more oriented towards taking on additional shift work, salary staff, putting additional effort and time in. Take you through the specifics of all of it. But if Julie, HR director, and has any indication, and the past history is any indication of the future, you can anticipate that it's going to basically looking at and here, okay. But basically, what we're looking at is if we go down the path of a referendum, okay, if we're talking about a package that would include retention bonuses that are how many months, Matt? Can you remind me? 6 months. So if we go down the referendum path, we're talking about retention bonuses for 6 months worth of pay that would pay out at the end. Everything okay? You all right? Okay. Get the ice hitting you?
It's getting a little high.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, am I gonna get another shower?
Yeah, cool down over there, just relax. So 6 months, it would be 6 months worth of pay. Now, this is only if we go to referendum process, because it's gonna take us longer because we have to wait for the referendum. And it's gonna be very, very public. You can basically count on certainly weekly news articles, probably more frequently than that. But it's gonna be a 6 month retention bonus that would happen when we finally move into whatever that new facility is, or if the public votes no, if we decide to close the facility, or whatever the final outcome is, okay? So basically, we want to incentivize keeping people here to serve this population as long as possible. Because first and foremost, we're mission driven towards these folks, right? That's why we're here. And if that's not why you're here, that's a whole nother conversation you need to have with your supervisor, but it's certainly why we're here. We want to help create that environment for residents to enjoy authentic quality of life here in this building. Now, if we don't go down the referendum path, which is very possible, then we're still talking about doing a retention bonus, and that's 3 months? 3 months. Okay, I've almost got this memorized. It's 3 months, so it's the same thing. If however long it takes us to get to that final stage and we're moved on to in that case, the new facility, it's still 3 months worth of pay in the form of a retention bonus. Now, mind you, we have attorneys who are a pain in the ass to work with. We have HR people that are nothing but a pleasure to work with because they're sitting in the back. And we have politicians who are a pain in the ass to work with, yours truly included. So we've got some work to do to finalize what that looks like. I expect there'll be tweaks along the way, but I don't expect massive changes, okay? There's gonna be some form of retention incentive, and it's gonna be significant to the point of 6 months pay for sticking around, during 6 months additional pay for sticking around. However, we've gotta formulate that to do it legally, to do it in terms of HR policy, to do it politically. We're gonna do it because we need your help. We need you to stick it out with us, not for us, not for me, for the people who live in this facility and who've lived here for a long time and for their families, okay? That's what I'm asking you to do. There are other components that we're also gonna work on. I talked about some shift differential pay, especially for second shift. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Can you, $4 an hour?
Yeah.
Okay, to help out with differential pay. If you're a salary employee, we're also working on a package there. What, Matt, can you remind me of that one? That one I don't remember.
Salary people who are pitching in on second and third shift and working weekends. We're looking at a $42,000 add-on, which would be about $3,000 per person and 2 different payouts of $1,500.
So for, if you couldn't hear that on the recording, if you're a salary person, it's two $1,500 payouts, 3,000 total. And Matt calculated out for what that would cost for the whole organization, which you probably don't care about, and I wouldn't either. So that's the salary people. And then, which one am I missing?
There's going to be a general bonus.
Oh, yes, the general bonus, this would be for every employee. Now, again, this has to go through the Human Services Committee, and it has to be vetted yet through the HR department and the attorney. But that would be proposed in the October Human Services Committee meeting, right? But this would be $650 immediately, as soon as we get all the approvals and HR works out the kinks. So you can expect the end of October or early November, no later than mid-November. So before you go Christmas shopping, $650 for everybody right off the bat. And then for anybody under 0.2 FTEs, so let's see, what would 0.2 FTE calculate out to, Angie? It's a casual, 0.2 FTE. Okay, so that would be $300. Okay, so anybody above that threshold gets $650, anybody below gets $300. All right. Did I hit them all? Am I
Well,
missing one?
there's a special bonus for any CNA that works first or third shift.
Matt, why don't you come up here? So, because we're recording this thing. I said, why don't you come up?
Hey. Okay,
So there's one additional incentive piece. that I
Right,
forgot about.
and that's for any CNA that's willing to switch from first shift or third shift to second shift, and they work that 10 months, they'll get, if they're full-time, they'll get $2,000 bonus. If they're a part-time 0.4 or greater, they get $1,000 bonus for switching shifts for that period of time.
And that's all of them, right? We covered
And that's it.
You got them all?
Yeah.
Gotta be one more.
No. Tay, are we missing anything on that front? Okay, Julie, you got it all? Okay, so as you heard, that's a pretty robust package. I will tell you, there won't be anything quite like this for anyone else in the county. So if you have other county friends, please don't rub it in. And I say that because there will be other departments that are upset. So you can expect that, okay? But I think it's that important for the people that we serve, that we make the investment now to keep our teammates as long as we possibly can until we get to whatever the new future state is. All right. So we're literally putting our money where our mouth is. And I'm willing to do more if and when we get to a certain stage and we feel like we need to do something additional, we will consider that too. But my hope is this will get us to whatever the next phase is. And I'm highly confident we're gonna know that somewhere in the next 3 to 6 months. So, all right, who's buying donuts? Again, I want to thank you again for persevering for the last several years, especially for the last 18 months with COVID. I know it's been awful. I don't know what it's like. I can appreciate what it's like. And thank you. Thank you so much. I know that the people who have family members here and who live here certainly appreciate it. And I can tell you, I hear all the time from community members how much they appreciate it. And not just for you, but for human services workers and sheriff's department employees and all kinds of folks. But I know especially here, it's been particularly challenging. So thank you so much. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the technicalities of how the process might work or what you're hearing, feeling, thinking. Please, now's your opportunity. And online, there's some chats or questions.
Online, you'll need to raise your hand and then I will call on you with a green thumb.
Questions? I did that good of a job. I mean, for $650, I guess I could get anybody to shut up. Yes, please, thank you.
What are we gonna do to bring more staff in?
That's a wonderful question. Everybody's facing the same challenges. So we have been talking about an increase that will be really just was passed. Was it passed this past
Yeah,
month?
so you probably got the
Can you come
memo.
up so everybody
Yeah,
can?
sure. So you probably got the memo, but there was an approval at Health and Human Services for an increase in CNAs for 2.5% and an increase for RNs at 3.8%. So that goes into effect to the start of next pay period. There's been some other initiatives with trying to get students, especially our students who are already working in casual, but they're away, to come in and drive home from school to help them with some tuition reimbursement. But also when we finalize this incentive package, I mean, the shift differential will be very significant. But then also there's a time period that people will be eligible for this 6 months or this 3 months. So people hired into a certain period of time, I think right now we're talking about June of 2022. If they come in and they're hired and they stay, then they would also be eligible for the 6-month payout or the 3-month payout, depending. And then if they come after June, it goes down to 3 months or 1 month. So there'll be still an incentive for new employees to come and stay with us through this process, because they will also then get a payout or a bonus, retention bonus for that as well. And then, HR is working very diligently. I mean, it's an issue across the nation, but we're just trying to do all the things that we can think about to try to recruit people. I know the last time we spoke with all of you, we talked about talking to your friends and coworkers or colleagues about coming to work here. I know that was to mixed review, but maybe these incentives would, help people to think about coming here and helping us during this time.
And that is the number one, that by hands down, it's not even close. It's the most successful way of getting new people is someone from within is recommending and telling them about the retention bonus possibility and how that works. And it's not even close. Every organization has the same statistics and they all point to, if you people are saying it's worth it, come and do this, our residents need your help and you're recruiting people, it's way more effective. Yes.
For those of us that are going to 12-hour shifts starting at the next pay period, so when the second shift starts, we'll be getting that shift bonus, the premium for like the 4 hours.
That's the goal. When I said we have to work through the HR payroll components, that'll be one of those components. So it may end up taking more like the end part of the month, but that is the goal.
Okay.
And we've got to get this through committee. So I always have to caveat that I'm not the king. I can't just say this is happening. So our goal is yes, but no later than I would say, if you're not getting it by the beginning of November, you will be by the middle of November. Like getting the actual cash in hand is what I mean. Just how long does it take to work it through the process?
Yeah, I think just to reiterate on that, so right now we have this sketched out and they're talking with the lawyers, they're talking with HR. As soon as we finalize that, I'll be putting a report together for Health and Human Services, which is I want to say October 27th is that meeting. And then if they approve that, then it'll start, the things that are immediate will start to show up on your paychecks and things like that. And obviously memos will come out to say, okay, this is what it's officially. But you know, once we put the committee report together, that's public information. We can share that with you of what we're asking. But again, you just have to be prepared for, they could modify, they could say no. I mean, again, we've had a really good track record. We have a great committee. They're very committed to and know the work that you guys are all doing. And so I feel good about it, but you know, we never can give 100% guarantee for anything until it's actually rubber stamped with approval.
Right. And two positive indicators. One, at the meeting last month, when I kind of gave the same speech much longer to the committee, they were already asking about what are we gonna do? And our answer was, we're working on it, we'll get back to you. So I think they're already anticipating that we come with some kind of package. So that's good. I think that means that they're likely to approve. The other is, Matt and I just briefly talked about, if possible, we ask for an earlier meeting from the Human Services Committee. You know, the county board meets earlier in the month, so it's possible we could meet that day. But that's a conversation we have to have with the chairwoman to be able to actually execute and have that a little bit sooner. So I think all the arrows point in the right direction. It's just, we've got to go through the processes, political, legal, HR, all of those. Yes.
What about 12-hour shifts for CNAs?
We're looking into that.
Still going through or?
Sandy, last that I know, still sent a survey, how much interest the survey company, so once we get that information back.
So the question was, for those of you watching, the question was, what about 12-hour shifts for CNAs? And the answer was, there's a survey monkey going around to find out what kind of interest there is, and following that survey, there'll be more information. Did I get that right? Okay. Yes.
Where does the county come up with the funds to cover this bonuses and packages? Where does that?
Well, I'll tell you, that's what the question was, where does the county come up with the money to fund all of this? That's probably what took the longest, was to try and figure out the answer to that question. I think predominantly the American Recovery Plan Act dollars are going to help fund the majority, if not all of it. It's certainly what we're going to go to first, and so that's, our finance people have to tell us, does this qualify it or not? And they have to go through every one of those categories you just heard about. And then once that's done, if the answer is no to some of it, then we have to go back to the committee and we have to, we'll use general fund money, which we don't, just so you know this, we don't use property tax funds at all to fund Samaritan's operation. It's completely funded by either private pay or Medicaid or some combination of federal and state funding. So it would be abnormal for us to go to the board and say we want property tax money to fund this. But I am ready to do that if the American Recovery Plan money doesn't cover it. So I don't think funding's an issue, but it's a complexity we have to work through. For the purposes of what you all need to know, the money's coming, it doesn't matter from where. But for those of you who are more financial, it's probably first and foremost American Recovery Plan Act. Excuse me?
No, the legitimate answer, doesn't matter where the money's coming from.
Right, yeah, the dollars in your bank account will look exactly the same, I can promise you that.
And we gonna like.
Yeah, yes,
The retention bonuses, is that just for nursing staff or all staff?
it's built for all staff, right? Yeah, right. And then the one piece that is probably the most complicated is the salary bonus part, which is separate from retention, but that one we have to work through, make sure legally that we're doing that one the right way.
But just to be clear, the 6 month or the 3 month is not going to include casuals. So, you know, for
Right.
for student status or casuals, they will not get the 6-month payout. So it's for anybody who's an FTE. And that's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
that 0.2 or less.
Yeah, 0.2 or less.
So that.
Was there, somebody else had a hand up before, did I miss it or not? Okay. Any?
So the
Yeah.
big incentive for our 0.2 people to become 0.4s or 0.5.
Yes, yeah. Yes.
I just want to say thank you for all the work you guys are doing too.
Oh, thank you.
It's really appreciated. I think these are awesome ideas. I think it will really help, you know, those that are kind of on the line, able to hang in here and really good people that we see leaving and we can retain some of them. So I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you very much. And especially to Matt and Taya and Julie, I can tell you the midnight oil has had to be restocked several times because they're burning it hot. So thank you to them. They're doing the bulk of the hard labor. Any other questions? I can hang around for a while too, if you feel more comfortable, like offline, one-on-one. The three of us can stay up here. But again, I know you guys are working as hard or harder than you've ever worked before in almost unspeakably difficult circumstances from a variety of angles. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And I know the residents, both of this facility and of the entire county, appreciate it. So thank you so much. I know there's not enough words that I can say to express it, but just know that it really is appreciated. And please persevere with us through this. It's been a long road. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I'm telling you, please help us get to the end and help these folks, because that's what we're all here to do. Okay, thank you so much. Yep, and we'll hang out up here.
So how do you assess that?